Hey everyone, my name is Jazz, and today I wanted to discuss a highly relevant topic in competitive Fortnite. How to choose an early game drop and how to think about what you're choosing. This video is mainly meant to help you in a general sense. I'm not going to sit here and say, hey, these are the best drops in Fortnite right now, because honestly, I don't really believe in that. Most drops can work well depending on the type of player that lands there. So let's get into the video to see what kind of drop is good for you. First of all, I believe there's two basic ways to look at good rotations after the early game. Obviously, there's more than two, but for this video, we're sticking to the two most widely used rotations. The first one is rotating to the dead side of circle, and the second one is rotating to the center of the circle. I'll explain what dead side is real quick for the people that don't know. Dead side is basically the side of the circle where the least amount of people are going to be. This is determined by how people rotate and from where these people have to rotate from. And for the first two zones, this is usually on the side closest to the edge of the island. Now, when choosing a drop spot, I think it's fairly important to think about what you prefer, being on dead side or being in the center of the circle the majority of the games. When you're landing somewhere at the edge of the island, it's usually easier to rotate to dead side than when you're landing more towards the middle of the island. The benefits and downsides of Deadside is usually that there's far less players on that side of the map, which makes for easier rotations. When you're landing somewhere at the edge of the island, it's usually easier to rotate to Deadside than when you're landing more towards the middle of the island. The benefits and downsides of Deadside is usually that there's far less players on that side of the map, which makes for easier rotations and less fighting, but you're not very likely to have zone on your side. So you have to spend a lot more time rotating. So this is usually preferred for players that don't like to fight in the mid game unless they really have to. The benefits and downsides of rotating to center zone are basically exactly the opposite. You're more likely to fight in the mid game, but you'll have a more guaranteed position for upcoming circles. So that's one thing you can think about when choosing a drop spot. Where on the island is it located and what are the good rotations out of there? Now, for the second thing, which is basically how many people land at the location you're thinking of. This is usually determined mostly by how much loot there is, or if there's a mythic item at that location. But sometimes certain drop spots are just more popular than others, so try out different things to find out how contested different drop spots are. For this part, I'd recommend thinking about how much you mind fighting in the early game, because if you land somewhere with a lot of players, you're obviously going to have to fight more than when you're landing somewhere with less players. This is also kind of a risk versus reward question. How much loot can you get somewhere compared to the amount of risk there is going for it? The third question you should ask yourself is about your loadout and what kind of a loadout you'd want. Obviously, if there's a specific mythic item you'd want, then you're going to have to land close to it in the early game. But you should also think about other items available at your drop spot. For example, if you want fish, you need to figure out how to get them in the early game or after rotating consistently. Other loadout related questions are things like the amount of ammo boxes for lots of AR ammo, for example, if you're someone like Tfue, if you're a passive player, amount of consumable boxes for peppers if you'd like to use peppers, or even an upgrade station, so upgrade your SMG if you'd want to use a P90 every game. These are all examples of loadout related questions that you should ask yourself. What do you want to use and what drop spots can give you what you want? Alright, so now I've made the most important questions you should ask yourself clear. Let's use these questions to find a hypothetical drop spot. Let's say you're a player that doesn't feel the need for a mythic item, but you'd want to carry an AR, shotgun, harpoon, floppers, and shields. You'd rather not fight in the mid game because you don't like third parties, but you don't mind fighting in the early game. In this case, you should probably be looking for an area that is on the edge of the map where there's a good amount of fishing spots. Another aspect you can think of in relation to the likelihood of you finding a harpoon could be the amount of those barrels with fishing rods that spawn around the map, because those are probably your best bet to finding a harpoon consistently. So let's see what this would look like. Alright, so we're using lootlake.info, which is basically a great website to do these kinds of things with, so you can look at the theoretical part of it. So you can see lots of different spawns, you can add things, ammo boxes, chests, floor loot, as well as all these other options. For this case though, we don't really want to add everything just because it's going to flood our sensory input, so we'd like to just focus on a couple things. So we're looking for an AR, shotgun, harpoon, floppers, and shields. An AR and a shotgun just comes down to the chest and the floor loot. It's not too interesting right now. We might add that later to see what is actually a viable drop spot, because you'd want enough of those. But it's not key to this drop spot that we're looking for. The main interesting thing is the harpoon as well as the floppers. So we're going to need, let's see, fishing holes and these, it says fishing rods here, but obviously harpoons can spawn out of there. So that's the first thing that we want to pay attention to. The second thing was that we were looking for an area that is on the edge of the map. So anything in this range we kind of are going to not worry too much about. And what did we say about wanting to fight in the early game or not? We said that we don't mind fighting early, but we didn't want to fight in the mid game. So we're probably going to look for a spot on the edge of the map, and we're not going to worry too much about how many people land there. So right off the bat, this looks like a gray area, sweaty, but steamy would also work. Basically anything along these lines would work. Actually, steamy, my bad, steamy wouldn't really work great because it doesn't have any fishing rods, although that might be bugged. This this site that I'm using, it's not bugged per se, but because of the new season, it's not completely updated yet. They're still working on it. But I think this is fairly accurate. So we'd probably want to go somewhere where there's a ton of fishing rods. So either somewhere over here, just anywhere where there's a good amount of fishing rods and fishing holes. Alright, let's do a second example. Let's say you're a player that wants to fight in the mid game using a P90, but preferably not in the early game because you don't like fighting with low amount of materials and inconsistent loot. In this case, you're going to want to find an area where there's an upgrade station and decent materials, so you can upgrade an SMG every game. But you don't want to be somewhere too contested in the center of the map, or at least there needs to be a way for you to rotate quick towards the center of the map. So let's see. We are looking for, well, obviously we're going to add the chest and the floor loot. The most important thing was an upgrade machine. Actually, we're going to quickly get rid of these so it's more clear where the upgrade machines are. And then we're going to focus on either a way to rotate to center of the map, so either using whirlpools, or we just want to find somewhere where it's already center of the map because you want to fight more. So what upgrade stations would be there that are kind of, let's say, not too contested? Well, obviously I don't know everything about this map, so I'm not too sure where things are contested or not, but you should probably look somewhere around the lines of this island, although this is, I think, a bit more contested. It would have good rotation though. Same with this one right here. But the main thing you'd want to avoid, obviously, would be Authority, because you don't like fighting in the early game, and Authority is going to be really contested. Here, because you don't really want to be on the edge of the map because you're looking to fight. So you're basically trying to find somewhere, like here, for example, where it's probably not too contested, but you'd be able to upgrade your SMG every game. Material-wise, I think you could maybe farm Risky or something, but this is just off the top of my head, so you'd have to try stuff out. Alright, I hope you guys understand how to think about choosing a drop, and don't worry about instantly being right whenever you choose. You can always try stuff out, and if it doesn't work, you can figure out why it's not working, and either make minor changes to your strategy, or choose a different spot. At the end of the day, just because something might work theoretically, doesn't mean it's always going to work in-game. So make sure to not be too hard on yourself, and pay attention to why certain things work and why other things don't work. I wish you guys the best of luck with finding a drop spot, and if you have any questions about this, or any other topic for that matter, make sure to ask me in the comments below, where I can usually respond fairly quick. And on a final note, I'd like to mention that I do in fact have a support a creator code, if you'd like to support me. It's CoachJazz, one word. I'll put it in the description below if you're not sure, and it really means a lot to me that even one person chooses to go out of their way to type in my code in the item shop. It's truly appreciated. Anyways, thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you guys in about 2 weeks.